You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Franco Luna, Puma Podcast. You're listening to Teka Teka News, balitang thinking, hindi breaking. In this episode,
That's one na advocacy, I think, that I am able to inspire those who have chronic illnesses, not only rheumatic heart disease, but other children as well who have chronic diseases. They can also reach their dreams if they only believed in themselves.
meet the medical board exam topnotcher with a chronic heart condition. "25-year-old Aira Cassandra Castro, who was born and raised in Lawag in her home province of Ilocos Norte. Teka lang, she's now Doktora Aira pala. After all, she got the highest rating of 89% among almost 2,900 examinees in the March 2023 physician licensure examination.
I was done with church, so we decided that to go to the mall and have samgyupsal. Kasi gutom na gutom at that time yung boyfriend ko and hindi pa kumakain after some 36-hour shift. So, when we were in the parking lot, nagno-notify na po yung phone ko na, "Oy, top 1," ganun. Tapos ang dami na pong nagme-message.
She says she herself didn't expect any of it.
After taking the boards, I think feeling ko papasa lang po talaga ako eh. But sabi nila sa review center, if you want to be a top-notcher, you should get at least a raw score of 80. And when I tried to count the sure answers that I had, I could only count up to 65, mga 70, ganun.
Even more impressive, she did all this struggling with a chronic illness that had limited her for years. Rheumatic heart disease is an immune condition caused by heart valve damage. It's common among children and can lead to shortness of breath and inflamed joints. It can also lead to death or disability.
I was actually diagnosed with rheumatic heart disease when I was in grade 4. And during that time, I had to stop my schooling for a while, like about 2 weeks. And some of my teachers actually wanted to drop me.
Recovery from rheumatic heart disease can take a bit of time, and Ira says she had to go through extended antibiotic treatments growing up just to prevent recurring infections. Looking back, Ira feels her condition robbed her of a normal childhood. But the flip side is that's how she developed a deep love for books and eventually science.
Growing up, yung mga family members ko, they are playing a lot, running around, and me, nandun lang sa isang sulok, nagbabasa. That's how people saw me growing up. Parang sometimes when we have these parang Christmas parties when I was a kid, we would have trivia questions, and then I would really be the winner of it. Kasi nga, talagang libro-libro lang talaga yung ginagawa ko. I was an avid collector of almanacs, yung mga yearly almanacs, encyclopedia. And then growing up when I was in high school, I had my monthly subscription of Reader's Digest. Medicine is very dynamic. It's changing every now and then. Yung mga concepts before that was true is now parang proven na hindi pala. So that's what I like about medicine, and that's what caught my attention.
Ira was already 21 years old when she was finally able to get off her medication. All throughout med school, she was often pushed to the limits physically.
Hindi ako pwedeng magpuyat ng sobra-sobra, and yung physical stress, there are times na parang nare-restrict yung physical activities ko, especially when we have anatomy classes, parang yung mga exams namin ng anatomy where we have to stand, we have to do cadaver dissection for a long time. Sometimes I would feel na parang I would lose consciousness. So what I would usually do is I take a moment to sit down and breathe. There are some restrictions also especially when I did my clerkship and internship, because it really takes a physical toll pag nagka-clerkship ka kasi we had to do long hours, And then when the restriction was removed from the COVID, we had to undergo yung mga 24-hour duties and sometimes even extending up to 36 to 40 hours yung most na hours that we rendered for our duties. And sometimes nakakapagod po talaga if we have to scrub in on surgeries, yung mga 8 hours ganon, tapos walang kain, and then you would really just feel na parang you are going into syncope, parang nawawalan ka na ng malay ganon. And sometimes you have to ask permission na parang, can I scrub out for a second, or like magpahinga.
So she had to work smart, not just hard.
Yung kalaban kasi when you're reviewing for the board exam is yung puyat talaga. So I tried to avoid that because syempre may sakit na nga tapos magpupuyat pa. So I structured my schedule in such a way that hindi dapat ako nagpupuyat, hindi dapat ako nagkakram.
We're pausing for a quick break now. When we return, what's next for the bored top-notcher with rheumatic heart disease? The Mariano Marcos State University, Aira Castro's alma mater, boasted a 100% passing rate in this year's board exam for the fourth time in a row. Aira was also a valedictorian twice in high school and in her undergraduate years, but she says she never felt any pressure to excel.
My parents, hindi sila very vocal kasi, but you could feel that the support was there. And my mother she would always say na, just do your best kahit na you do not excel. Basta lang, we know that you are doing your best. That's how they are. That's how they raised us. Actually, you would never hear them say na parang, you should study hard, ganyan. Dapat maging top 1 ka. What my parents would say is, parang okay lang, it's okay to just be enough, di ba?
Aira says her own experience was a big part of what pushed her to pursue medicine. In 2020, studies showed there were, on average, a measly 3.7 doctors for every 10,000 Filipinos.
I really had many episodes of strep throat. I guess that's where it developed from. It really was hard because there's a shortage of pediatrician also in my province. My pediatrician, she was just fresh from UST, I think, and then she went on here to practice. I was actually misdiagnosed nung bata po ako.
Aira says the turning point for her was their freshman community medicine program, where she spent time in a barangay called Gaang in the Curimao municipality.
Yeah, it was a weekly visit. Every Friday afternoon, we would spend our time there. And then at first, we had to do a lot of survey to determine the needs. What are the top diseases in that area? And then yung mga sumusunod na steps, we had to do some outreach programs to educated the people regarding yung mga top diseases that we investigated. Yun po. And then yung last po is yung may sarili kang family na linulook after. And what really inspired me was my family, yung na-assign sa akin na family, the breadwinner had chronic illness, may cancer siya. And at that time, yung diagnosis is bigla-biglaan kasi. So, I really saw how the dynamics in their family shifted from the tatay being the breadwinner noon, tapos na-shift yung role niya sa mother, and then also yung anak nila, she really had psychiatric na illness too because she also attempted suicide at that time.
She's hoping to visit them again soon. She thinks they'd be proud to know that their assigned nurse is now a board top-notcher. More than that, she's determined to improve healthcare in second and third tier municipalities, particularly in her hometown of Lawag.
The government has lots of money. However, yung sigurong management, I think there needs to be a better management on how things are purchased. Ang nakita ko talagang needs is kakulangan ng mga apparatus. Kasi kahit man lang po BP app ay wala talaga. So what we did was to collect money and then also also purchased some BP apparatus so we could donate that to the barangay. So yun po, marami talagang needs sa community. There are parang kokonti lang yung barangay health workers that were there. So yun po.
What's her message to her fellow newly minted doctors?
What I would say is you should stay here because there really is a need. But when you go to other countries to develop yourself, that's okay. But you should come back at the end of the day because there are a lot of people who needs you here. For me, kasi I'm deeply rooted to stay in the province because my education was funded by the people. Ever since kindergarten ako, nasa public school, high school, and then college, talagang naging scholar po ako. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is have the heart to give back to those people who put you there in the first place.
And what kind of doctor does she want to be?
Maraming doktor po na parang magaling but they do not have empathy with their patients. I really want to be known as a doctor na hindi lamang gumagamot ng sakit, kundi I want to be holistic. I want to be a holistic doctor na I am not just looking into the disease aspect, but I'm also looking into how the disease process affects the patient, how it affects the dynamics of his or her family. I think what I'm really working on improving is having empathy for the patients. I want to be known for empathy. There's this phrase na from womb to tomb. So I want to be someone na patients can consult to na parang from womb to tomb. So even beyond bereavement, you can still have the support for their family as well.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Franco Luna. This episode was edited by Pidoy Blanco. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or two. And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka News and Puma Podcast on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening.